Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be giving you guys a very long-term review of my M2 MacBook Air since I've had this computer for over 3 years now, and I thought this video would be fitting because we're approaching back to school season. Particularly, we're going to be going through some features and how they've held up, like the build, the screen, and throughout the video I'm going to be giving you guys a look at the kind of work that I put this laptop through on a day-to-day basis. And finally, I want to give you guys an informed conclusion on whether or not the M2 MacBook Air is still a worthy buy in 2025, or if you should be looking at Apple's other newer options. Just like everyone else, when I'm on my laptop, I spend a great deal of time doing general everyday tasks like using Chrome, using Spotify, making notes on Notion, but sometimes I'm also putting this laptop through more intensive tasks like editing these videos and a lot of coding. Alright, so first let's talk about the build. In my opinion, MacBooks have pretty much always been the best built laptops, and I've always loved the physical user experience. I still see a lot of people opening MacBooks for the first time and being surprised that you can open it up with a single hand without having to hold down the deck, but it's just generally a really clean build. It's all unibody aluminium all the way around, which is still like always cold to the touch, but it's still light. I'm carrying this around in my backpack all the time and it's never been a problem. I've accumulated a couple scratches here and there, but that's just natural because I also don't put it in a case when I'm carrying it around. Biggest problem, to be honest, is the fact that dust builds up in almost every corner of this machine, mainly around the crevice where the speakers are, and while we're on the topic of speakers, they're very impressive. I'm using headphones most of the time, but on the rare occasion I'm using the speakers, they sound super clear. I'd probably want them to get a little louder ideally, but they're speakers from a 14-inch MacBook Air, so you can't really expect that much. The screen is also still excellent. I'm aware laptop screens have come a long way since the M2 MacBook Air, but that's mainly on the pros. In this video, I'm going to be drawing a lot of comparison with Apple's newest M4 MacBook Airs, and when you compare it to those, the screens are pretty much identical. Same brightness, same resolution, same liquid retina display, and it looks great. It's when you get to the MacBook Pros where the display type switches to mini LED, so you get way better contrast and more accurate colors. But as I'm going to be mentioning a lot in this video, if you're looking at the M2 MacBook Air as an option, you probably don't care about a feature like that in specific too much, because those accurate colors are going to be most useful to the people with professional workflows, whether it's editing videos or photos, so no need to feel like you're missing out too much. So let's move on to the performance, which has been pretty much perfect for my specific workflow. My specific Mac has 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, which I think are pretty much the bare minimum specs that anyone looking to get this laptop should be looking at. Even if you think it's going to be fine and that you're just going to get by, you're probably going to run into issues later on if you're skimping out on the RAM and the storage. It's basically just a convenience thing. You can't upgrade specs on Macs too, so definitely think about the spec you want to get really carefully. So obviously this is going to be a breeze past any normal use, whether it's in Chrome, if you're just browsing, or if you're just taking notes for school. Like, there are zero problems here. I just happen to be using this machine for slightly more intense workflows like video editing and programming, but even then I can't imagine needing more. I edit my videos in 1080p, and I use DaVinci Resolve, so I barely ever have to wait longer than 2 minutes to render out one of my videos. And the only coding I'm really doing is mainly web development, and for that, it's super chill, absolutely no problems at all. I never feel limited in any way, and I really don't think anyone who's considering this laptop is going to be limited in any way either. I also feel like a lot of people who aren't actually going to benefit from it much are thinking about getting the MacBook Pros for some reason. Like, sure, you get the extra ports, the additional GPU cores, and a fan for better thermals, and the fan alone probably means your laptop's going to last significantly longer, but I don't think it's worth the $600 increase in the starting price. Now, that's a bit of an unfair comparison to draw because the M4 MacBook Airs start at 256 gigabytes of storage for some reason, and the MacBook Pros all start at 512. So it's more like a $400 difference, which is still huge. So for the most part, if you're doing normal computer tasks and you're not doing anything crazy, or even if you are doing some intensive tasks every now and then, I think you can really nicely get by with just a MacBook Air. MacBook Pros are really overkill for way more people than you'd think. Now let's move on to battery life, where the M2 MacBook Air is still insane. When I first took it out the box, it would easily last me 2 days on a single charge if I wasn't doing anything crazy. And if it really was just Chrome and like taking notes or whatever, then it would push 3 days of use. Nowadays, I don't think it's that good, but it's still very impressive. If I'm like editing a video or something and doing other light tasks too throughout the day, it would still last me practically an entire day. The best part is that most of the time when I'm doing any work at home, it's connected up to my monitor, which is the Dell U2720Q. It's 4K, 27 inches, but I don't think it's that easy to find nowadays. So I'll link some other options too in the description in case you guys are looking for some laptop monitors. But the Thunderbolt 3 cable lets me connect it to But the Thunderbolt 3 cable lets me connect it to the monitor and charge it at the same time, so I'm basically always on 100% battery. I love MagSafe, I'm so happy they brought it back, although I am really often charging it with USB-C even when I'm out and about, just because it's convenient to use the same charger for everything. But yeah, to be honest, when it comes to any laptop that has the M1 chip or higher, you really don't have to worry about the battery life at all unless you're doing really intensive tasks like editing 4K video. And in that case, you should be looking at the MacBook Pros, specifically the 16-inch. But that's a very small group of people, to be honest. If you're watching a video like this for the M2 MacBook Air, the likelihood is your use is basically limited to using Chrome, maybe watching Netflix and stuff like that. And for that kind of use, it'll probably last you at least 2 days. For example, you can see here on Sunday, I had around 110% of battery used, which equated to around 14 hours of screen time. So yeah, very comfortable battery life. We don't know exactly how many more software updates macOS is going to get on the M2 MacBook Air in specific, but I'm sure that even if this Mac got no more major software updates and only got minor security updates, it would be perfectly fine. This computer's only been out for 3 years, so it's likely that it'll probably be fully supported for another 2 to 4 years, which is great. And I'm a macOS guy. When it comes to productive stuff, it's just what I'm most comfortable with. But there are things that I don't like about it. There's no doubt about that. For example, there's no good Windows snapping, so I had to pay £5 for an app called Magnet, which does it really nicely. You can't game on it, or at least the game catalog that you have available to you is very limited. Although I can't imagine a lot of people are buying this laptop for really intense gaming sessions, but it's still sad to see, I guess. But other than that, there's not too much that annoys me, to be honest. It seems like with every update, macOS is becoming more and more customizable, which is great to see. Also, I really miss AirDrop. I switched to a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra about a year ago at this point, and it's really great, like in every way possible. But after switching to Android, this is probably the one thing that gripes me. It used to be so easy taking a quick photo or video and just clicking a button and it appearing on my Mac, but can't do that anymore, so oh well. There's also a bunch of small little things I just like a lot, like little touches. Like the fact that the menu bar is the same structure no matter what app you're on, and like how good Spotlight search is, so you basically use your mouse less than half the time of any Windows user. Speaking of mice, I'm pretty rarely using the trackpad on this M2 MacBook Air, although it is one of the best trackpads in any laptop to this day. I spend way more time on the MX Master 3, which is like the default productivity mouse, and I still highly recommend it. And the keyboard is also quite nice. Again, I'm using a mechanical keyboard most of the time when I'm sat at my desk, but for when I'm working at a coffee shop or something, and I don't want to be clicking away really loudly, the membrane keyboard on the MacBook works just fine. I haven't had any quality control issues with it, but I will admit Windows laptop keyboards have caught up really nicely too. So it's nothing special at this point, it just does the job. Alright, let's wrap up some conclusive thoughts now by answering 2 questions. First of all, who is it for? Anyone who does really basic tasks on their laptop, like using a search engine or making notes, and just wants to save a bit of money by getting an older generation, and is okay with it being refurbished or used, because that's pretty much the only option you have at this point. And it also really depends on the price range that's available to you and that you're looking at, because if you're finding it for something that's over like £850, then at that point, I would recommend probably just getting an M4 MacBook Air, new, and that's going to last you way longer. You can also probably look elsewhere at like the M4 15-inch MacBook Air, which has the bigger screen and also is really nice because you get the way better speakers. But if you're looking at more common prices around the 600 range and you're okay with it being used, I still think the M2 MacBook Air holds up really well in 2025. Ideally, try and get it refurbished rather than used. That's probably going to be more reliable for you. And if your only options are used, then I'd only get it if you really do want to save some money, because the M4 MacBook Air is really nicely priced and you're getting a new machine. I just think it's a pretty fine line between the two. And who is it not for? Pretty much anyone who has any more of a complex workflow. If you're editing heavy videos and coding complicated projects, if you need like a fan because you need the extra thermal headroom, then obviously look elsewhere. In summary, it's held up really well for me still till 2025, but the only problem is if you're buying it now, that your only option is that you have to get it used. But either way, I really hope you guys found this video useful. Like and subscribe if you want to see more tech reviews just like this one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.